A full government shutdown looms as critical approvals for public spending in the first quarter of 2025 remained unresolved following the indefinite suspension of Parliament. Speaker Alban Bagbin announced the suspension after the NPP caucus failed to appear in the chamber, despite having requested an urgent sitting. The majority leader, Foran, attributed their absence to the Speaker's decision to permit the NDC to take the right side of the chamber. Minority leader Dr. Kaisala Foran says the NPP have caused financial loss to the state by failing to show up for the emergency sitting they requested. Here is the Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kuku Asante with a wrap of the key events in Parliament.
It's been another chaotic day in Parliament. The Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, has once more indefinitely adjourned Parliament. NPP MPs who recalled Parliament to sit on urgent government business did not show up in the chamber, forcing the Speaker to say the House again lacked the quorum to take decisions and has adjourned proceedings. When the Speaker of Parliament walked in, it was only the NDC MPs who were seated on the majority side. Early on, they had come in their numbers and taken over the right-hand side of the Speaker, and they were not going to leave. The minority pews were empty. The Speaker consequently made a declaration that because the House is only constituted by a number that has not formed the correct decision making in the House, he's adjourning the House.
Unfortunately, the signatories who made the request have not shown up, and therefore matters that they wanted us to handle, which are admitted for the consideration of the business committee, are not on the order paper, and in fact there's no order paper for today because the business committee could not meet due to the absence of the people who requested for the recall. It is not advisable to be adjourning from day to day. And so I'll proceed once more to adjourn the meeting indefinitely. And the meeting, this extraordinary meeting, is accordingly adjourned.
But Katie Hammond, the Member of Parliament for Adansi Asokwa, says the Speaker of Parliament is actually in contempt of court.
So even if he had 99, which is 1/3 of what to form the quorum, it was for the Speaker to make the announcement in the House that his ruling has been stayed, has been overset. Accordingly, minority back to where you were, majority back to where you have been. That is the simplest solution. Now, the orders of the Supreme Court were directed specifically to the Speaker. It was the Speaker. It wasn't the leadership. It wasn't the clerk. It wasn't the leadership which made that ruling. That decision. It was the Speaker of Parliament who unconstitutionally made a proclamation, whatever it is that he said the last time. The Supreme Court has told him that he was wrong. Restore matters to what they were before you did that.
Line of action for the NPP.
Well, we will cite him for contempt. We will cite the Speaker for contempt. Watch the space.
We have subsequently now heard from the leader of the NPP group in Parliament, Alexander Fenyomakin, who is saying they will recall Parliament, but ultimately taking on the Speaker for the way and manner he ordered affairs in Parliament today.
If he claims that what he did was a formal communication in response to a statement from the minority leader, then why is he supervising chaos in the House? What Mr. Speaker did today amount to supervising chaos and bringing the image of democracy to disrepute.
Member of Parliament for Doma East, Paul Chumberima, says he's disappointed in the 8th Parliament and how things have panned.
Ghanaians didn't vote for us to come and do this. Doma East people didn't vote for Paul Chumberima to come, and by the time I get to chamber, they said they've adjourned. And it cannot go on like this. It is clearly totally unacceptable. And I think the 8th Parliament we must sit up and live up to expectation. It's clearly, it is quite unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. But I think we need to live up to expectation because this is not what Ghanaians are expecting from us.
We are now waiting to see what exactly the NPP MPs will do. Are they going to trigger the constitution and the standing orders to recall parliament, or they are going to further engage? Mind you, we have barely 2-3 weeks to the December election, and there's a lot of outstanding business, including the vote on account that will cater for the first quarter of 2025. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
As you have heard, Kweku Asante, there are fears salaries and statutory payments will be withheld if the first quarter of 2025 budget is not presented and passed. My colleague, parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante, joins me in studio. Anna Kweku, thank you for joining us. Before we even go into the budget and how it will be passed, let's go back to exactly what happened in Parliament. I know you have given account of it. But after what happened in Parliament, Afenyomarkin addressed us and has been telling us exactly what happened as to why the clerk put their name tags on the chairs and yet was removed. Give me a wrap of that.
Well, he says that the dawn of yesterday, his leadership had actually surveyed the chamber of the House. They had made sure that they were on the majority side. And in fact, they insist and claim that the clerk to Parliament had made sure that the name arrangement kept them on the right-hand side of the speaker and that they were ready to walk in there and go and take their rightful seats, only for the NDC MPs to go ahead of them, take their name tags out, go to the other side and bring their name tags to come in instead, obviously disrupting the arrangement that had already been made by the clerk to Parliament. And he says that is the main reason why they did not want to come into the chamber. Alexander Afenyomarkin is clear in his mind that the NDC MPs want chaos and they do not want to offer them any opportunity to be chaotic on the floor. They do not wish that some of the events that characterized the election of Alban Bagbin as Speaker on the midnight of the 7th January 2021, they do not wish to have any sort of that issue recur, and that is why they decided to actually stay away from the Chamber of Parliament. Again, there have been questions as to whether or not they could not have communicated this to the Speaker. In fact, there are those who have suggested that the MPP MPs may have been engaged in a caucus meeting, for which reason at the time the sitting started, they were not in the know. That is a claim that has been made by someone like Honorable Kennedy Japan, for instance, who says that at least his leadership should have communicated that to the Speaker of Parliament. But that's obviously some sort of a contradiction between the account of the majority leader himself, Alexander Afenyomarkin, and what Kennedy Japan is saying. Mind you, prior to the Speaker walking in and adjourning the House indefinitely, Samuel Atachian had come in and was a bit surprised that there was nobody in the chamber from his side, and so actually left and said he was going to engage his leadership and then return. Obviously, by the time they had put together their acts, the Speaker of Parliament had adjourned the House indefinitely. So on the score of Alexander Afenyomarkin, it's putting the blame squarely at the doors of the Speaker, who he accuses in that sound we play of supervising chaos, of allowing the NDC MPs to take the part of the House that, in his opinion, do not belong to them, for which reason they did not wish to come back to the chamber.
Thank you for that clarity. Now let's go back to this budget that will need approval for the first quarter of 2025.
Yes, in election year, the Constitution and the Public Financial Management Act do not allow for the approval of a full budget for the whole 2025. So in election years, what is done is the vote on account, in appropriation. So what was expected was that the Finance Minister, Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam, within this meeting of Parliament between now and December, would have brought the first quarter of 2025 budget, a budget that would take care of the first 3 months, that a budget that would pay salaries, deal with all government projects and outstanding business, pay interest and all that, before the newly elected government, with a new mandate from the people, would then go ahead and then present a new budget in March of next year to take care of the rest of 2025. As we speak, there have been no indication when exactly that is going to come. And that is why persons have already been raising concerns that that may mean that in early 2025, and if this political stalemate continues, in early 2025, there will be no money to pay all these statutory funds, there will be no money to pay salaries and all that. The good news, however, is that the Parliament of Ghana can do this after the election on 7th December. Okay. Unlike the budget itself, where the Constitution, the PFM in particular, says must be presented by a certain date, normally by the end of November. When it comes to the vote on account, it can be done on any day prior to 2025 kicking in. So it can even be done on the 29th of December and approved if it can be approved in time. The last time the Speaker adjourned Parliament indefinitely, that was 2 weeks ago, had an interview with Dr. Castle Atufosin and asked him about that. Specifically, why the budget is not being prioritized in all this brouhaha and all that. He says that is a matter they can even come and do after the election or even after Christmas. And so it is clear that they are not prioritizing this for now as this political stalemate rages on. And they are hoping, and the indication I'm getting is that next week, for instance, the NPP MPs, if the Speaker of Parliament does not recall Parliament on its own, they are going to trigger another recall. They are going to garner the signatures to do that so that the Finance Minister can approve, can bring
the third.
That will be the third time in like 4 months that the NPP side have triggered Article 1123 of the Constitution to actually get the Parliament to sit in under extraordinary circumstances. And so if they bring this and they make this a major agenda on it, and what we saw yesterday do not recur, because the indication is that the NDC MP say they will always take the majority side of the House. It will mean that ordinarily, if the NPP MPs still want to come and do government business, they would have to probably take the minority side and do the government business. If that's what NDC MPs have said, that if government business matter to them, it should not matter where they sit. But the NPP MPs have said, listen, we are the majority. We need to be on the right-hand side of the Speaker. So as this rages on, there is that.
Ian Kweku, so if the NDC members of Parliament are determined to take the majority side, what then happens to these 5 NDC members who have laid down a private member's bill?
Right, and they have written to the Speaker already, introducing a private member's bill to repeal the betting tax. They are going to amend the Income Act, and they are looking forward to the House reconvening. And they say that even if Parliament reconvenes after the election, this is something that they are going to do. But really, this is a political game that they are playing. They know that even if they pass this in Parliament, the President will perhaps not sign it, and there will not be enough time to do all the constitutional issues. For instance, the Constitution does not allow a private member's bill to totally abolish a tax, for instance, unless, of course, you reduce it to a certain extent. And so those are all constitutional issues that if they come up, it will not be addressed before the 7th of January 2025, when a new government and a new Parliament will be sworn in MFA.
Thank you always, Kweku. Right, so let's explore the economic implications of the impasse in Parliament. Joining me now is economist Dr. Godfred Bokpin. Good afternoon and thank you for joining us. What are the economic implications of the impasse in Parliament, though?
Yeah, good afternoon and good afternoon to our cherished listeners. I think that overall it's not good news. Overall, it doesn't help to consolidate investor confidence in our economy. Don't forget that we are still under an IMF program. We have gone through an expensive debt restructuring and other tax measures. We just finished our external debt restructuring, external bilateral, and especially external commercial in terms of Eurobonds and all of that. So you expect that every organ of government, everybody's action and inaction will be telling a positive story so that we consolidate the confidence that we are seeing gradually. It's also an election year. That also presents some level of risk and all of that. But I think that overall, it doesn't bear testimony to the maturity of our democracy. I see this as an opportunity to rise above party politics, self-interest, and put the common interest ahead of party interest, self-interest, and all of that. So we should not feel on this. But I think overall also, we also need to situate this within the context of how the president is ending his term and his own way of saying goodbye to Ghanaians. So I think that the president must find a way of also coming in to resolve this issue, because whether we like it or not, the end of a matter is more important than the beginning. And the signal should not be that the president probably has moved on. It's immaterial to him, whatever happens, and all of that. He's still the leader of the country, and still has got a couple of months down the line. It should not be that people get the impression that he has gotten what he wanted, so whatever happens now is immaterial. But I think overall...
Will it matter exactly when this budget is approved? Will it matter, as we know that Parliament can really recall and maybe approve it, say, 29th or even the last day of December? Will it matter at all? Does it still have any economic implications?
No, in fact, I don't see the expenditure in advance of appropriation as a major issue here. That can be done all the way up to 31st December. That can be done. I think we know that in an election year, we cannot. We will not be able to present a full budget, and government only spends as enabled by the Appropriation Act. Okay, so I think the Constitution, Article 180 of the Constitution specifies that if the president determines that probably full appropriation cannot happen, or probably before the coming into operation of the Appropriation Act, then he can, through the Minister of Finance, get approval by resolution from Parliament so that they will be able to withdraw from the consolidated fund in line with Article 180 of the Constitution and then Section 23 of the Public Financial Management Act, and then in accordance with the orders of Parliament as well. So I think that there isn't a major risk from that point, even for the main budget itself, right? Even though the Public Financial Management Act specifies 15th of November as the deadline for the presentation. We've had instances where we've got to work around that particular date, but the most important thing is that approval ought to be given by the 31st December. But we should not push ourselves to that end, because the idea is that the expenditure in advance of appropriation, or even the main budget, is not only a tool to enable government to withdraw from the consolidated fund, it's also a signal to the economy, to the market, in terms of the direction that government is going. So it's not just that Parliament must have enough time to be able to deliberate on this, but it's also the fact that the citizens, stakeholders, investors also run with that same information. Okay, because for instance, businesses will be planning and we'll be looking at what is the direction that government is going next year. Even if it's not a full budget, it's just expenditure in advance of appropriation for the first 3 months. At least it's also good as an information for Ghanaians, for investors, for businesses, and all of that. And that is why giving the stakeholders ample time to be able to process, digest, and incorporate that in their decision making would also be helpful. So we should be looking at it from multiple angles rather than just satisfying government ability to withdraw from the consolidated fund and pay salaries. The state is bigger than just paying salaries to public sector workers. The budget is bigger than just enabling government to withdraw from the consolidated fund. It's an important communication tool about the direction of the economy, so that businesses and individuals begin to also plan along that line. Even though the expenditure in advance of appropriation is for the first 3 months, at least the stakes are still very high, okay, and all of that. But I think overall, the way I see it is that I think we must use this as an evidence that our democracy has arrived. These challenges are inevitable. These developments are inevitable. Even advanced democracies and the rest of them, like what happened in the US and all of that. Can you imagine Biden and Kamala Harris are promising peaceful transfer? Why should US be talking about promising peaceful transfer? It should be a logical outcome of a process that probably ended on November 5th. And all of that. So we should also rise above this, use this as a way to test how mature we are on our democratic journey. And we should not just fall apart and pursue political selfish interest above the common interest.
Prof, before I let you go finally, so that we're made to believe that each time Parliament is adjourned and recalled, it costs us a certain amount of money. I don't know whether or not this has any form of impact. As a layperson sitting here, I like to think that it will have a certain impact on our economy. But is it significant enough to say that it has a certain level of impact on our economy? If that amount of money that Dr. Atu Kazel is purporting cost us as a country, if they recall Parliament?
Well, let's look at it this way. If Parliament is suspended indefinitely, their salary doesn't stop. Their remuneration doesn't stop. The state continues to pay them. They were not elected to be at home or at their constituencies campaigning and all of that. So we expect them to be in Parliament anytime they are called. That is why they are being paid and all of that. But of course, you can see that between the two main political parties, you can see they are also prioritizing the election campaign. The MPs probably would prefer to be in their constituencies and all of that. So all these dynamics are coming to play and all of that. Because at the end of the day, just like what happens in public sector, we go on strike, our salaries are not suspended immediately and all of that. And therefore, I think all those things are important, but I think it's more also about the optics of it, right? And the blame game that we do with our politics. So we create the impression that somebody is causing this and all. But I think whether we like it or not, what is happening here, the Speaker of Parliament has a role to play, the minority has a role to play, the majority has a role to play, and I think the executive, the president, also has a role to. The way I'm looking at it is that the president must be able to exit peacefully in a manner that Ghanaians will remember him.
Thank you.
And all of these things should also lean towards consolidating our democracy and building confidence in our economy, so we'll be able to attract the much needed portfolio flows and investment flows to even stabilize our city. Don't forget that what is happening is not only that it will affect investors, it's also affecting how Ghanaians are also reacting and preparing towards the election. Don't be surprised if by the end of November, towards early part of December, some Ghanaians who have bought treasury bills decide not to roll over their bill, right? And that may also affect how much government is able to mobilize. Don't forget, if some Ghanaians begin to also buy and accumulate dollars in case of uncertainty because they don't know what might happen, all these things can unsettle the stability of the currency. So we should not be looking at it in terms of foreign investors alone, but we should be looking at how all of this can also undermine the stability we have in the country.
Very well said. Thank you so much, Professor Bokwin, for talking to us. Now, meanwhile, NPP MP for Asante Chim North, Andy Apia Kubi, has criticized his fellow MPs for not prioritizing the nation's interest amid the ongoing parliamentary crisis.
I don't like the spectacle that we're showing to the public. Indeed, I would have thought that Ghanaians will have to show disapproval for what is happening. We are behaving like we don't have any serious business before us. And I'm not saying...
As in Parliament.
As in Parliament.
Yeah.
We must behave maturely. In fact, the way we are going about our things, I'm sure the people in Ghana, they are all not too happy with us.
At least according to the Afro Barometer, they are really disapproving of you.
Total disappointment if you check the mood of the public. And indeed, we are not behaving well at all. Are we behaving honorably at all? Indeed, for me, what caused all this? I mean, is it a case that sitting here, sitting there is too important than conducting the business of Ghana? Ghana as an enterprise requires management of personnel.
True.
And we are all doing this to hurt all ourselves. Either way, nobody wins. Indeed, if my party wins and comes back to power, most of these bills, if we don't take them now, we cannot. They will not survive the next to the next parliament. We have to start all over again. I mean, what kind of waste is this? And how do we justify this conduct?
But you didn't show up in Parliament either.
Who did show up?
You.
Today?
Yes. Did you sit?
I did. But you see, I went there. In fact, I had traveled all the way from my constituency this morning.
Oh, from the Shelter region?
Yes, this morning, because I'm on my campaign. So I drove straight to the grounds because I was late. So I thought that there was supposed to have been a caucus meeting. Mm-hmm. Well, I was late, so I just drove there, only to find out that my side, there was nobody there. So,
but you were pre-informed that you will not be sitting? Because you didn't show up.
No.
You are saying that you were not pre-informed?
We were supposed to have gone to caucus,
yes,
and then come out of caucus into Parliament.
Okay. All right.
But because I knew I was late for caucus, coming from Asante Chim, I drove straight to Parliament.
Oh, that's why I didn't get to hear that you're not sitting.
Yes, I didn't get to hear that we're not sitting. So I'm not privy to the discussions in caucus today.
Do you support your decision, as you are in the majority, so it's your decision, to hook or crook sit on the majority side, or you not appear in Parliament at all?
No, first and foremost, let's call a spade a spade. In fact, the interpretation being given to 97.1G to very weird. And I'm not interpretation of vacation of a member.
Okay.
Indeed,
I talk about the Okwe interpretation.
Okwe interpretation was very wrong.
This is the Pulse on the Joy News channel. We'll be back shortly.